Bob Lord, well, there are endless stories about Bob Lord. Bob Lord the butcher. I mean, Bob Lord was Burnley. And the funny thing is, when I was, a young lad, a young teenager, I worked on the Burnley Express for a while, so, as a photographer. Perforce, I came into contact with him. And at the time, he seemed a huge man to me. He had very close-set eyes and slicked down black hair, the watch fob and all that. Very Victorian character, Edwardian Victorian character in many ways. And there used to be a portrait of him downstairs, and whenever you walked in through that entrance, the eyes seemed to follow you wherever you went. And the footballers have got endless wonderful stories about their dealings with him. He's a hard man. And it's for other people to talk about the legend that is Bob Lord. There have been books written about him, but nevertheless, again, he was claret through and through. I only had one real dealing with him when, in the early '60s, when the Burnley team got very successful, and we started to play in Europe, and American tours had started, and there was a bit of a fracas over that. And Bob was never very keen on the press if they criticised his beloved clarets, and he'd ban people. He'd just ban them from the ground, just say, you can't come in, that's it, you're finished. And that even went to the local paper from time to time, who of course live off football, very important, always support the club, But Bob would go off on one, and on one occasion he would say, he said, none of you can come, but the lad can come. He said, that was green, the lad can come, he can take a picture. So I thought, oh, fine. So I was sent along. Of course, what I did in the tradition of press photographers, of course, I took more than one from several angles, and they would appear in other papers. And of course, you could never quite understand how this could happen. But I lived in fear that he would discover that it was the lad that was betraying him. But again, the ban would be lifted the following week, and you'd move on. But yes, he was Burnley. He was Mr. Burnley, Bob Lord. Extraordinary man. I saw him years later in London. I was doing a show in London, and he was at Euston Station getting a cab, getting a taxi, and he was quite small. He was quite small. He'd become chairman of the Football League, and he didn't want, for instance, one of the things interesting about him, he didn't want television in football. He tried to keep television out of football, said it'll ruin it. And he was partly right, of course, not in the sense it would ruin it, but football has changed dramatically since the Premier League started, and there was a time when this club nearly failed because of that ITV contract, which collapsed. Do you remember the Football League contract? And it put this club particularly in great trouble. And there's no doubt that football is in thrall now to Rupert Murdoch and to Sky. The only thing that I would have said about that when it came on, I think the Football League should have, they were so much out of the pot of gold, the big clubs. I wish they'd have had the courage to say, right, you can have... Famous thing, he said, get me football at any price, said Rupert Murdoch. It's a legendary phrase, because he knew that Sky couldn't exist without it. Couldn't exist without it. And he did. They did pay the price, and they paid a lot of money. But it went to a few clubs, and I think the Football League should have stuck together and gone for, like, Sky 1, 2, 3 and 4, and put a proper structure in place so that there was a genuine progression. Nowadays, everybody is struggling for this pot of gold, and the results that are coming out, the financial end-of-year results for some clubs this year are going to be very grim indeed, because it's all or nothing,